focusing on not only the financial aspect, but development planning as well. And because he is clueless, our country is going through a very difficult time. Now, I'm not going to go through all of the intricacies that's going on in the finance ministry with how the 25 million were distributed among all of those players and officials. Let's look at the Minister of Information. The Minister of Information, I do not believe, understand his function. This is not helping. The Minister of Information is not the mouthpiece of the President. Have the Chief of Staff and other senior officials of the President that should speak on behalf. The Minister of Information should focus on just informing the Liberian people about the activities of the government and allowing various ministries to explain their own intricacies. You are not there to defend anyone. You are just there to inform the Liberian people about what is going on and not to defend the president or to defend what the administration is doing. You are only there to report what the administration is doing. You should focus on just reporting, focus on tourism, and other important essential job responsibility that is going to bring financial capital to our country. The Foreign Minister. We need a savvy individual as Foreign Minister that will go out there and work on behalf of our country. He is completely silent and insignificant at this point. Okay? Foreign Minister should be out there. It is the Foreign Minister that should really disseminate the message of our country to other foreign leaders and foreign businesses to invite and attract businesses. This is our mouthpiece on the international scene. This guy is completely oblivious to what he's supposed to do. And everything is resting on the president, who is just a figurehead in the position as the president. And I understand even the president have given his responsibility to one of his senior economic advisors to be on all of the ministries that kind of report to him. So it seems like those three officials alone are taking us nowhere. And this is a problem for our country. And until this can be resolved, until qualified individuals can come in and take over those positions, it's going to be, a difficult time for Liberians.
One would say the definition for qualified individual lies within the purview of the president, because he has the appointing power. I think Article 28 of the Liberian Constitution apportioned wholly and solely that responsibility to appoint individuals. Now let's try to define the meaning of qualify here for a minute. Is there anybody within his cabinet that you can use as a case study, as an example of what you mean by qualified individual?
I'm sure there are
the organization known as ECOWAS. And just a minute. Today we are going to be talking about the Republic of Liberia. Just a minute. Thanks for joining me. All right. So there's just a transfusion of of the technology. We at some point went off air, but then it was just for a short time because of lots of folks home on Sundays, and sometimes the Wi-Fi, even though it's okay, but so go ahead. That was just an interruption. Hopefully you still hear me.
Yes, I am.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Well, sorry for the obstruction, but go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much. There may be qualified individuals in the government, but it is difficult for those individuals to come up to the forefront because they are being suppressed. They do not have the kind of financial capital, or the money is not being appropriated to them to have the kind of effect in a positive manner, okay? And it seems like, this is a difficult thing. for our country because of the misappropriation of funding. Most of those ministers and other senior government officials that should really have the financial ability to implement their policies are being sidelined, and this is, a problem for them to come out. So it has dampened all of their charisma and, really put a black line across any stars that come up in this current administration. So as of now, I really do not see anyone that is doing anything that they should be doing in this administration. This is very sad.
One would say it's a hard line to take because there are lots of other individuals, even though you think some of the ones that should be performing are sidelined. But Liberia in itself would only be moved forward by us Liberians. We don't have to bring any other professionals. Maybe we need to, but if any country has its own qualified individuals, our nation has some of the best and brightest to take any task to the next level. But one of the things that have stalled us in the past is our own self-aggrandizement. It's a big word, but we put our interests first before country. Do you think this is about qualification, or rather this is about selflessness? Because you can bring the most qualified according to your medium, but if that individual lacks selflessness, they'll only be there to cater to themselves as opposed to the bigger goal, the republic.
Thank you very much. Look, just like you said, Liberia can only be handled appropriately by Liberians themselves. Okay? Look, what we have is a systemic problem in our country. Disregard for the rule of law, tribalism, friendships, and partisans, party affiliations, especially party affiliations and tribalism. Those things are the most detrimental things in our country. Liberians are new to this kind of political environment with multiple parties and multiple candidates and the media accessibility to this level. So they do not fully understand or appreciate how the political process really works. Liberian feels that they should be loyal to a particular political party at any cost. And it is a them versus us mentality. I think that this is wrong. Liberians need to understand very fast that if your person got elected or my person got elected, after the election, we come together as Liberians and say, you that we elected, what are you going to do for all of us? But instead, we let few individuals put confusion and make us enemies against one another, and we start fighting against one another while those individuals are there doing whatever they feel like doing. So this is a systemic problem. We need to learn the political spectrum fast so that we can understand and decide what we want as Liberians, irrespective of whoever or whatever your political parties or political leaders are. Okay? For example, you have George Weah and I think Malu or however his name is, and few other senior officials. If all of them left CDC right now, CDC will be insignificant. So this is what you should look at. After CDC, those people are going to leave. What are you going to be left with? What are your children's future going to be like? Are they going to be paying for the wrongdoings and all of the errors of this administration? You, as a Liberian, as a citizen or member of ANC, should be critical of your party to make sure that we set the appropriate guideline to move our country forward as Liberians first, before any political institution. Hold your political leaders accountable to make sure they make the right decision for all Liberians and not just for a few. Thank you.
And of course, people in TV land or viewer land, this is James Christian Waugh, a resident of the state of New Jersey. And Mr. Waugh has been in the United States for quite a while. He's a self-accomplished Liberian, and he, like many others, is not happy with how things are moving in his country of birth, which is the Republic of Liberia. Mr. Waugh, of course, is a regular critic not only of the government of the day, but any government who probably has not played a role to improve the livelihood of average Liberians. And today we have him on our podcast, and we're talking an array of issues. And we are looking both at the executive branch of government, which is the President of the Republic of Liberia, along with his team of officers. And now we will be moving the second segment to the legislature. We will go in and out. Mr. Wow, I just lost you. Okay, now you're back. We'll go in and out of these branches of government to even include the judiciary, which is the law part, in a country that is not performing so well because of some of the ways people have truncated our laws, our organic laws, so to speak. Mr. Waugh, now we'll go to the legislature. You know, one can make the case that since the advent of a gentleman named Senator Abraham Darius Dillon, that legislature has never been the same since. And the man just entered that legislature probably the last 3 or 4 months. We've seen so much. Gone are the days when they had this rubber stamp arrangement where people coming for confirmation to just walk through. But since the advent of Mr. Dillon, not to discredit the others who saw it fit to join him right away and begin to make the needed changes, but Mr. Dillon has brought quite a bit of changes within, either unintendedly or on purpose. But his actions have moved the legislature from the whole of incredibility. One can say it's moving out towards credibility. If you were to have the ability to elect people, would you elect the same individuals around himself, or you like to see a brand new legislature, with certain class of Liberians? When I say class, people with integrity.
Thank you very much, Greg. Bill, when I used to look at...
Come closer to the microphone, you're breaking through.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is it okay now?
Yes, it's good.
I'm still getting echo in my voice.
Okay. It's not good. Just a minute.
Okay.
Well, go ahead. Let's see.
Okay. Now, the echo is gone.
Okay.
No, echo's back.
It's back?
Yes, it is.
It might be from your end there. I don't think it's from my end because everything here is at 0. It might be from your end there. I don't think it's from my end. Okay, just a minute. Do you hear me?
Yes.
I know that could be echo. I'm not sure why, but go
Right,
ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, clearly, Mr. Wah, clearly.
As well. Now, as I was saying, when I look back at the history of Liberia, I thought that all was lost. I thought there was no hope in the legislative branch of our government in the Republic of Liberia. But when Abraham Darius Dillon came in as senator of Masalado County, my spirit lifted so high with admiration and respect and dignity and honor. This is the kind of individual that we need in the legislative branch of government. Look, the legislative branch of government has equal power to the executive branch of government. I do not understand how many of our lawmakers allow the executive branch to pull them around as puppets. I cannot understand that. I do not understand how openly and easily the members or many members of the legislative branch of our government can be bribed openly to support the causes of the executive branch or the president. I want to say before I even go to Darius Dillon that, look, the legislative branch, the senators and the representatives should have integrity. The president cannot do anything to you. They cannot influence your electability. If you serve the people with dignity and respect and honesty, nobody can deprive you of being re-elected to that position. You should not be afraid. You were sworn in to protect the Constitution of Liberia, to work for the people. You are representative of the people. How do you let yourself be pulled around by the executive? Where is your integrity as a lawmaker? Darius Dillon, before he went into the Senate, nobody knew the salaries of senator. This is a distinguished individual that said, look, I'm not going to take this amount of money. He exposed the salary of all the senators for the first time in a long time in the history of Liberia. He was threatened by the pro-tem to just follow suit like the other senator. He refused. He alone have encouraged other senators, including Senator Nyobi Kanga of Grand Bassa County, to step up to the plate and to do the job that they were hired by the Liberian people to do. I want the Liberians to understand, and seditions, non-seditions, to understand that when you have the executive, everybody is appointed at the will and pleasure of the president. But you have the legislative branch to make sure that they check everything that the president is doing. If you are sedition, elect all the senators are seditions from the legislative branch, and you have the executive branch, there's no check and balance. You are seditions, you are Liberian first. When you go to vote, nobody is looking at you. Nobody can tell you, say, look, you didn't vote for us. You need to vote your conscience, not partisan politics. In advanced countries that practice politics, even the people that belong to the party are very critical of the leaders. They say, what are you going to do for us? But instead, citizens, you are just so intertwined into partisan affairs that you don't see that you are Liberian first. You are Liberian first. Before see this abstract, they can disappear at any time. You will still be Liberian. ANC can disappear at any time. You will still be Liberian. UP can disappear at any time. You will still be Liberian. So make sure that when you round up the decision you alone in the voting booth, you vote the person that you think is going to move our country forward. Not the person that your political party say, yeah, vote this person in. No. And to be specific, Senator Honorable Darius Dillon is the light. He has shown the light on the Senate, and it will be a disservice to Liberia if such a distinguished gentleman is not re-elected. But I trust our Liberian people in all of the different spins from CDC. They still elected Senator Dillon in Maserati County, and I can assure you that he will win re-election again, and he has my endorsement as Senator of Maserati County. Thank you.
You know, Darius Dillon, of course, has done he has dealt a blow, if that's the right phrase to use. He has dealt a blow to a business as usual, culture that existed within the legislature. And we hope he will muster more blows, to actually end that culture of self-seeking, wealth or self-aggrandizement. Could we say one of the reasons why people have not been effective is the fact that the executive branch has always found a way to bribe its way through that legislature, and people like Darius Dillon are not even willing to submit to that culture of bribery? Could you say this is one of the reasons why he's gaining this level of success? And my second part would be, do you think he's doing it primarily to be re-elected, and then once re-elected, then the real Darius Dillon will come up?
Look, first of all, I do not believe that Senator Dillon is successful because he refused to be bribed. I believe that this is a gentleman that has integrity for a very long time, even before he was elected. This gentleman had integrity back then, and he has not swayed away from that. This is an honorable Liberian. Make me proud to be a Liberian again because of that gentleman. And money, he is going to make money, millions. He is going to make millions. So his integrity is going to make him millions, even when he leaves as Senator of Maserati County. If he writes one book, it's going to go on the New York Times bestseller because of his integrity. So he's a Liberian with integrity. It has nothing to do with the fact that he just refused to be bribed, but refusing to be bribed is part of having integrity. Okay? This is an intellectual. This is a man that understands the function of the legislative branch of government and is more advanced. This is an individual that articulates on a PhD level. Yes. It makes me to understand and to appreciate that we still have Liberians to that level of argument that Senator Darius Dillon has. And I thank God for him, and I bless him, and I want to admonish Liberians to make sure that Darius Dillon, and not only Darius Dillon, but others Liberians with integrity, be elected as senators of our country. Individuals that understand that they have equal power to the executive branch of government, so that we can have the great check and balance in favor of the Liberian people, and the budget be appropriate to benefit the Liberian people. Thank you very much.
What happened if Mr. Dillon is not re-elected?
Well, that is a very, very long shot. Look, Liberians may not understand the political process, but it's up to us to make sure we educate our people, to make sure we make our people to understand that this is not about sedition or ANC or UP or LP. No. When you see individuals bring political parties, just group of individuals that are at the head, trying to establish a political party, and we try to use that, it's just a logical framework to deem everything just disappeared. Okay, so do not be so attached to a political party. Make sure you're attached to Liberia. And with that, Liberians understand what we're going through, they understand the kind of suffering that our people are going through. So I can assure you that the Honorable Abraham Darius Dillon will be elected, re-elected as Senator of Maserati County. So there's no supposition of whether or not he's not going to be elected. There's no ground for not re-electing Honorable Dillon. I just hope that in his second term, that he will start looking at legislation to bring some benefits to our people. Start writing some legislation and try to bring that to the floor so that we can have some benefits for our people, like quality medical facilities and credible opportunity to treat our people. Okay, credible education systems, employment for our young people. Our respected females are just being disrespected. They are so desperate that there's no jobs because of what's going on with this administration. And this has got to change. So I am sure that Senator Dillon will be re-elected, and as such, he should focus on bringing new policies, bringing new legislation to the floor so that the lives of our people can improve in Liberia. That's all we want. Our people in Liberia to be happy and live a better life in this century. Thank you.
Mr. Y, including Mr. Dillon himself, has said that his support base is not only in Liberia but us in the diaspora. And we have demonstrated that we are a composite part of the Liberian political system. Our voice matter, or our voices matter quite a bit. Recently, the confirmation, the withdrawal of Mr. Wamudiki, who was nominated to head NEC, is a clear indication that us in the diaspora have a bigger voice. And Mr. Dillon counts on us to not only for to show him the way. He needs a moral support. Do you think that is needed more in the upcoming election of re-election of Mr. Dillon, or we should just lay back because he has already the support he needs since the people know his quality of work? Do you think that alone is enough to have him re-elected?
Thank you, Conor Gray. I believe that Honorable Dillon is relying on us in the diaspora to provide him with not only the moral support, but also the financial support to make sure that he is successful in his second bid as Senator of Maserati County. Listen, there are forces that are trying so hard to remove Senator Dillon so that they can have the status quo as usual. We in the diaspora have to work harder, have to contribute more. We have to continuously educate our people so that we can eradicate the kind of mindset that, everything is based on what the executive branch of government says. And Senator Dillon is an integral part of disturbing this status quo for a new perspective on legislative branch of government in our country. So we must give him all of the moral support. We must call our people and tell them to vote for Senator Dillon, and we must also show our financial support through a coordinated effort and ensure that he is re-elected as Senator of Montserrat County. Thank you.
Now, within the rank and file of Montserrat County, we have Sir Joseph. Of course, everybody know wherever President Weir goes is where Joseph goes, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the only thing wrong with a partisan senator is that you lose focus on your Achillean task. You know, the president has a task, you know, that is much bigger than a senator, but a senator has another task to make sure that his constituents, which is the geographical area that he was elected for, in this case Montserrat, should be his utmost priority as opposed to that of the president, global priority or bigger priority. Do you think if he's up for re-election, he should be re-elected, somebody in the manner of Sir Joseph? Because he's doing quite a bit. I mean, we see that in his own personal, agenda endeavors, he's actually doing quite a bit. But would you want to see a Sir Joseph re-elected?
Look, let me tell you something. Our people are so desperate, they do not understand what is going on. We do not want personal contribution from individuals that are taking our own money and using a little bit of our money to make themselves look good. Sir Joseph has no clue what he is doing. He is only using the money that is already appropriated for Montserrat County as his personal money to use on few projects to show that he is doing it. This is not what we need. We need a senator that is intellectually inclined, that's going to bring policies that's going to be in place long after he leaves for our country, to change our capital city, to change Montserrat County for a better and more advanced Montserrat County, a Montserrat County that businesses will be looking to come to. Sir Joseph is clueless. He has absolutely no clue about what to do as Senator of Montserrat County. You take the money that's already appropriated and take the huge sum of salary that you make and spend a little bit of the people's money that's given to you through a corrupt measure to show that you're doing something. That's the people's own money. We want policy that's going to bring new businesses in. We want policy that's going to change our sewer system. We want policy that's going to revamp our dam to provide steady electricity for our people. We need policy that's going to really re-engineer our hospitals. We need those kind of policies. Not go give a donation here, give food here to some kids, a few things, a few dollars here and there, and you think that's what it takes to be senator of Montserrat County. If I were to Liberia to run, Sir Joseph is out. He has no chance against me if I was running as senator of Montserrat County. But at this point, I've not decided that. But he has absolutely no clue about what it takes to be senator of Montserrat County. Look at Montserrat. From the time Sir Joseph was elected, has he presented one legislation in reference to the development of Montserrat County on anything? You go and take some few funds and build one little thing here, and you think that is supposed to be what Montserrat needs to move into the next century, to move to the next level for our children and their children? No. Liberians need to understand that this is not about party affiliation or partisan politics. Elect the person that is capable of doing the job. Nobody's going to see who you voted for. Even if you told them that you voted for them, they cannot hold you accountable for that. Do not allow our country to go down the drain by electing the likes of Sir Joseph. That is completely wrong. Don't base it on, oh yes, he brought a few ambulances. No, those ambulances were already donated. Oh yeah, he's building this. That is just one little sector. We need policy, legislation to move Maserati forward. And we need a more qualified individual than Sir Joseph. Thank you.
Well, you know, Sir Joseph is just one of probably many of the individuals that you probably would want to see replaced. The beauty of Liberia also lies with our, you know, other counties. Magibi is quite big. Magibi has some of the best infrastructure that a country can have, including our airport. We do have, you know, good level of Firestone plantation there, where probably we could begin to erect policy that will bring in manufacturing sector there, so that we don't just export all of our raw materials out of the country. And going forward, one could say Bon County. Of course, we had changes there recently. We brought in, you know, Dr. Tupa. I'm not sure whether you're familiar with Dr. Tupa's own being in the Senate, but he, in my opinion, he's a lost senator within the body of voices that will need to elevate our developmental, you know, endeavors forward. So we're going to be wandering between among our counties. So what would you say about places like Magibi? Because I think we have Oscar Cooper there. Are you satisfied with someone like Oscar Cooper?
Well, I don't know the progress of Oscar Cooper, but I can speak to Dr. Toba, his name is?
Yeah,
right?
Bon County.
Yes. Now, I think this is a fine gentleman that has the county at heart, but if you are not part of this administration, then you are hampered, you are hindered in whatever way possible to impede your ability to contribute and give back to your people. Dr. Toba has not received the kind of support from this government to have an impact in this county as yet. This is the reason why we need to take back the Senate. Look, Liberians, take back the Senate first, and all other things shall fall in line. If you took back the Senate, the executive branch will fall in line. You will have no more Eastern loan, Ebola loan being rectified before even being reviewed by the Senate. How can you approve a loan before even ratification? These are some of the things that we have in the Senate that's ongoing that are wrong. Take back the Senate. Want qualified individuals in the Senate so that they can hold the executive branch accountable. Look at what happened with Nwabudike. From the beginning, I already informed the Senate to reject Nwabudike. How can the executive branch of government not do the due diligence? Elected this man, recommended this man on 3 different occasions, even to the highest level of the chairman of the National Election Commission of our country without due diligence. Okay? This is just another way of sacrificing by all of these individuals to ensure that the CDC administration wins the 2020 and the 2023 election by rigging the election. And this is unacceptable. And this is why we need people in the Senate that's going to make sure they check everything that the executive does and they make the right laws for us so that we do not have these kind of violations of our Constitution. Thank you.
You know, with me on the air today is J. Christian War, J for James. Christian War is a resident of the state of New Jersey. Mr. War and I were delving into an array of political issues in Liberia. And Mr. War, of course, happens to be a regular commentator and a keen observer of politics in the motherland, Liberia. So today we are delving on a number of issues to include the three branches of government. Ours is a tripartite form of governance. We do have a legislature, which is considered as the first branch, and the executive, second branch of government, and then the judiciary, which is a third branch of government, all with equal powers. Mr. Wa, you know, you have, we have talked about individuals. Now, let's see if we can discuss national development. Let's say if you were advising the president, you understand?
Correct.
What are two items that would be on your topmost agenda as advisor to the president of the Republic of Liberia? Or let's say senator for that matter, if you were closer to Senator Darius Dillon and then giving him punchline as to what to embark upon. What are two things that you want to see take off the ground right away?
Well, let me just say that at this point in time, my advice to Senator Dillon would be to put forth legislation that would benefit our people. I already said that prior to your question. Put in on the floor legislation
such as
improvement in our healthcare system.
Okay.
No payment for people that cannot afford that. Okay. Insurance for people that are less privileged so that they can have the ID card and take their children to the hospital, okay, free of charge. Other negotiations with drug companies in the United States and other companies to have our medical facility well equipped. Negotiate for equipment so that we can have the kind of equipment to save the lives of our people. Our people are dying. 50, 40 is like old age in Liberia. They die so early because of the lack of simple, affordable medical facilities and medical equipment. Put on the floor legislation that's going to take a percentage of the Liberian government budget to appropriate that for people that are less fortunate in our country. We want the kind of education system that's going to help our people. Okay? We don't want our people to go pay the teacher $50, you get A, $25, you get B, $20, you get B minus, $10, you get C, $100, you get A plus whatever. No money, you get sex by the teacher. We cannot afford that. Our people are going to learn nothing. We are trying to build a future generation. So I want him to put into place those kind of policies that will go after schools and institutions that would just give people grades that they didn't earn. Look at our graduates. I'm on Facebook and other social media, and I listen to some of our college graduates speak, and I listen to them write on social media. It's discouraging. Look, back in the 70s and the early 80s, before the overthrow Tolbert, a high school graduate in Liberia was equivalent to a college graduate in the United States. People from all over the world went to Liberia to be educated. Now, our college graduate cannot even write a sentence. That is embarrassing. We cannot allow that. We just turn a blind eye to that. It's okay. What happened to jobs? So I want to send it to our advising on really negotiating with universities and businesses. Look, Liberia is an English-speaking country. We can have the kind of training to have operators for AT&T, for Sprint, for all of these carriers, because we speak English fluently. Okay? We derived from the United States to a point. Okay, Liberia was formed by people from the United States of America. We should have preferences over the telephone operator from India or the telephone operator from Bangladesh or all of these other countries. We need people to negotiate on those levels. We do not have this. I will advise the senator. But at this point, it's going to be a difficult challenge because of the kind of makeup of the Senate. So we need more people of like mind so that such legislation can move forward through the process expeditiously. Okay? Now, I wanted to elaborate a little bit briefly on advising the president. This economic strain that we find ourselves in, it is difficult for us to go and look around to see who's going to come in, because nobody wants to come in based on the integrity of this administration. If I want to advise the president, immediately what I would do within the next year or so, I will instruct all of my embassy to coordinate a program that for every 100 Liberian that put $500,000 together, the Liberian government will match it with another $500,000, and they will open a company in some part of the area of necessity to our country. That does a few things. It gives Liberians in the diaspora interest in the country as business owners. It creates a middle class in our country. And it also relieves the government of certain employment, because people will go to these different companies. If the government can establish 10 or 20 businesses by Liberians collecting money in the government match it, that would alleviate the burden of the government from hiring so many people. Those people will go to those different companies, will generate more income, Liberians will be involved, and within a few years, Liberians from those different companies can come together and establish the Liberian-owned bank, owned by Liberians, and we'll have a middle class, we'll have a robust economy, and that's the first advice I will give to the president. There will be other advice, but due to time constraint on this program, I will not elaborate that. So I will yield at this time to proceed with other discussions.
You know, Mr. Wah, of course, on the podcast tonight, I have James Christian Wah from New Jersey, and he's a Liberian born. I've lived in the United States successfully. He's a self-made business person. And tonight we are looking at a number of Liberian national issues. And Mr. Wah, of course, does not bite and blow. He doesn't hold his tongue. Of course, he's lending his own frustration to the developmental process of our country. Mr. Wah, I would, I'd seen much hoopla about road construction. One would say that for a nation like ours that is practically building from scratch, there are certain amenities that will reduce the number of health hazards that any country such as ours, face. And one of those would be a central sewage system. Take, for instance, I'm pretty sure people are still, doing their thing openly in our country, and those are some of the way you mark, Stone Age attitude. In other words, People should not, in this day and age, in the 21st century, should not be defecating outside behind their house on the beach and all of these other areas. That's one national infrastructure that is badly needed. Somebody will talk about electric city, that if you can corner at least water supply, clean water supply and clean electric city and a central sewage system, you would have moved our country to out of at least the dungeon of backwardness. Now, but I hear people talking about streets. I know we need all. But if you were to be closer to this president, would street be your first priority?
Now, you see, a PG question. Look, this is the reason why it is important for qualified people that understand the implications of how this system works. You cannot just invest your time into streets, building roads. Look, what we need is something called systems analysis and design. Systems analysis and design. What that means is that we're going to take a look at our current system, analyze our current system. Okay, we need electricity. We have Ellen Johnson Sirleaf did very well with the degree of completion that she left that hydro dam in. Okay, all we need is maximization now. So we need to understand all of our needs for a system, not just road, but everything. Okay, so you analyze our system. We need roads.
Let me hold you to that thought. Now, you think the power generation that Madam Sirleaf initiated is substantial enough or substantive enough to cater to the population boom that we're experiencing in our urban areas in Liberia? Say, for instance, Monrovia, I understand, back in the 70s, was only meant to accommodate pretty much about 300,000 people, because it was not only focused on a particular geographical location, but there were suburbs. We used to talk about Monrovia and its environs, and those environs were able to house pretty much, if you put all together, it should be about 300,000. We have quadrupled that number. More people are coming in. Our city centers are getting so crowded to the extent where we don't have public sewage system. We don't have quite a bit of health amenities that will alleviate our health hazard. You understand? And do you think, being that electric city will be one of the cornerstones of our national development, you think the size, I think it was like a 60, if I'm not mistaken. It was not even up to 100 kVA, kilowatt of electric city that was coming in. One could say this was meant only to serve probably the Bushwood Island. Prior to that, we had a bigger electric amenity dam when built by probably the President Tubman. Back in the days, not even Talbot. And so, do you think that was enough? That's adequate for the number of people that will be needing electricity in Liberia?
Okay, first of all, the hydro dam is been underutilized.
Okay.
That's the first thing. Secondly, as I was stating before, you need system analysis and design. You design everything in a way that the roads are built, agriculture are implemented in place. You go to the University of Liberia and other universities through the agricultural program to start subsidizing farmers. While you're building the road, you're also negotiating for medical supplies. That creates jobs. And you're also going to move into the solar energy. Okay, the government have to be strategic in moving into the solar energy industry.
Alternative and sources of energy, fossil fuel.
Once the people are able to pay for the electricity and the solar alternative, that's going to generate the kind of income to sustain and to improve on that. Once agriculture is in place, that's going to create more jobs. And once you move the different ministries and all of the other things, you decentralize the whole government, move the ministry away, people will be forced to move, and it will just reduce the population in Monrovia. But you cannot just focus on one. This has to be studied by competent people that will do analysis and then design the entire system. Everything you talk about, electricity, road, agriculture, health, schools, all of those, employment, all of those things are done in a systemic form, in a system, in a way that the people, the experts are going to look at those things and say, we need to do this, we need to do this, so that they coordinate, and then we're going to design it. After we do that, then we're going to have a project of when to implement this, why is it necessary, when to implement the next one, what to implement concurrently, and so that will improve the entire system. But you cannot just say, oh yeah, I'm just going to focus on this. You just don't know what you're doing. And so until that study is done, we are in a very, very critical condition. The people in charge right now do not understand anything of what they're doing. And no amount of electricity is going to help, because it's just going to run out, no money to pay for the services. People are just stranded, people are just suffering, no jobs, and it's chaotic. And this is what we see going on now.
You know, Mr. Weil, when people talk about study, for instance, one would assume that after observing on the sideline for 12 years, a government that will replace Madam Salif would have come in, hit the ground running. You understand? No talk about feasibility study, this study, because we would assume that Madam Salif left quite a big blueprint. I know successive governments sometimes don't like to foster the blueprint of their predecessors. It's something that is just natural, because you will look like you're continuing the ambition of your predecessor. But government is continuity, definitely. One cannot, when you do it, it will be your project, not necessarily because somebody else gave you the blueprint. So feasibility study is another way of buying time, especially for a country like ours. Wouldn't you think that this government should be implementing the proper agenda now in consonance with the last administration, wherever they left off, and then they take off from there? Is that not enough a blueprint, the agenda, the proper agenda?
Yes, you're absolutely correct. It is, and I can assure you that Ellen Johnson Sirleaf did leave some kind of a blueprint for future implementation by this administration, but this administration is completely oblivious. They have no clue. People are just in those offices. They don't even know the functions. They don't even understand why they're there. There's no check and balances. The president gave all of the functions of all the ministry on a task, right, to monitor all of the functionalities of the ministry and then report to him. So what do you expect? These people don't understand what's going on in the ministry. They just sit there and wait for the month to end. You got people just drinking all around. They leave the offices whenever they feel like. They just drink. They just take bribes. They allow 10 million worth of goods to come in without taxes because somebody gave them 20,000. They allowed 10 million worth to come in because they took 20,000 in bribe. You know, so the government should be creative. Say if this ministry does this amount in revenue, we're going to give everybody a bonus of this amount. It's going to reduce the kind of corruption that's going on. We have none of those things. They don't even understand the essence of the blueprint that are there. They're just sitting there. They don't even look at it. 12 o'clock, 11 o'clock, everybody's gone from that office. Everybody's in the street drinking. Nobody checks anything. No accountability to superior officer. No integrity. How are you going to run a country like this? Look at the people that represent our country. Look at our foreign minister. I don't even think we have a foreign minister. I don't even think we have an interior minister of internal affairs. Where are those people? They're just completely lost. How are we going to function with such an inept administration? And everything starts from the top, from the leadership. You have a president with a vision. He is going to say, listen, I want this done by this time. I want this done by this time. Move this here, do this, do that. What happened to the other minister? Bring him in. We have none of those things. None. Absolutely none. You have a crisis going on. Our president is silent. Completely silent. Look, for example, we had 16 billion missing. The truck takes 10 minutes from the free port to the bank. The truck disappeared. The finance minister is saying one thing. The information minister contradicts the finance minister. There's conflict of interest. What does the president do? He says nothing. The bank, the guy who's named, the governor for the central bank says a completely different thing. What does the president do? He doesn't even address it. He's silent until he leaves the country and leave a 5-minute videotape to disrespect the Liberian people, leaves and go out of the country, stays there, come back and yell at the Liberian people and quarrel with them, just undermine the investigation, and that's where it ends. What are we doing? You were in power for the opposition, the primary opposition, for 12 years. You told us, we're going to make the lives better. We're going to bring the TRC report to fruition. We're going to look at the war crimes court. We're going to declare all of our assets. And you come there within 1 week. You build mansions, quarter mansions. All of your people that been, who have you seen that work in government for three months? Buy $300,000 houses, big cars. Can you imagine you got Jefferson Koji getting $50,000 from the government in excess of all of the expenses that the Maria City Corporation got as the budget? He got additional $50,000 a month. He got that for a whole year. We had to bring in an international auditing firm to even see that, because the World Bank said, we're not giving you any penny if we don't look at this. We're not giving you any penny if you don't reduce the salary. What is this? How do we expect to move forward? Our country is in a mess. Listen, we need to elect most of the new leaders in the Senate, remove all of those people. They are all warlords that do not want persecution from the War Crimes Code. So as long as we have them there, they're going to impede the progress of the War Crimes Code. We need to remove most of them, put new people in, so that they can make the president bring the War Crimes Code to fruition in Liberia, to persecute those that bear the most responsibility for the atrocity committed against our people. That's not going to go with impunity. We are not going to allow 250,000 of our people to be killed in cold blood, and nothing is done by this administration that promised that. That would not go. So we need new senators in the Senate to push that agenda. And we need to change this administration in 2023. Liberians, do not allow these individuals to bring.
Go ahead.
Yes. Do not allow these individuals, few individuals, to come around during election time, bring few beggar rights to you, talk to you like they're your friends. Because after election, you're not going to see them for another 9 years. To make sure that they have 9 years. And then we need to remove this president, bring somebody in that understands what needs to be done now to move our country forward, or else we are doomed. And we should not accept any corruption from the National Election Commission, because all of the people that they're electing so far, they are not qualified. But this rubber stamp Senate, against the wishes of few senators, approved the most corrupt individual as the co-chair, an individual that manipulated the data in our previous election that caused us to be where we are today. So we need to make sure that we remove the senators and we change this administration in 2023.
All right, let's see if we can take an interlude of Liberian music, ZTT to be specific, and then we'll come back and we'll look at the private sector. Government of scale, most governments of scale have moved the burden from central government to, they've outsourced most of the activity, and that can yield some level of productivity, because it is different when you work for a private organization that is implementing government's policy. Here, that's how we all get jobs. We'll go to the private sector. Government outsource those responsibilities. The focus is not, government was not meant to actually be the largest employer. You understand? There are badly needed government initiatives that need to be taken or housed for national security reasons or purposes that need to be housed by government or handled by government. Even at that, the majority of them, you understand, are outsourced to private ventures. So when we come back, we'll look at some of the ways in which we can practicalize this private venture initiative in Liberia, so we can begin to dwindle government down from this bloating size of governance we have, and everybody thinking that if you don't have a job with government, you don't have a job. And refocus that. But let's take an interlude of Liberian music, and then we'll come back and continue with the discussion. Thanks for listening. That was J. Christian Wa. Of course, he is our studio guest. We are just about wrapping this up. If you want to contribute, the number is on the screen. That number again is 763-447-1063. If you call that number, you would be allowed to participate, pretty much about 40 or 50 seconds. That way, at least, will maximize our time. We are very close to ending this broadcast, but let's take an interlude of music. Thank you.
I'm not getting you, Mr. Gray.
All right. I could I could try to get you online, but you know, pretty much I can tell you that if it's your voice that matter, it will be filtered in the air clearly. If you want to come on a video level, that also can be an option. But I would say time is fast spent, Mr. Numa. Of course, on the line there's O'Brien Numa. He's our first caller here, and Mr. Numa, of course, is a government policy wonk because he has served in that capacity. Matter of fact, you're talking about creating policy for government. Mr. O'Brien Nima happens to be one of those individuals who actually extensively created policies for government. So he's the right person to complement some of the suggestions you gave Mr. Watt. So let's see if we can listen to Mr. O'Brien Nima a little bit. Thank you, Mr. Nima. Thanks for calling. Welcome to the Colonel E. Remy Gray Show.
Thank you, Mr. Gray, and thanks to your studio guest. I kind of started following the conversation very late, so I didn't have the opportunity to capture almost everything that your learned student guest was saying. But on the face of the conversation, I just captured a few things and thought that we needed to make some quick clarity. And then maybe we should seek an opportunity with you so that your guests and ourselves can sit on the show by the video conference, and then we can chat more about some of the structural and systemic issues that we think we can lay, across the table so that every listener or every participant can have a fair understanding of where we stand and how we think things should be going. I know there is a common saying that, the people were there, they were there for 12 years, X, Y, Z happening. And so we just wanted to come up so that blame game and that name calling, we can sit and challenge those who think the way they think and the way we think so that we can figure out the conversation. But quickly to your studio guest, I think you did good with the conversation. I just wanted to point a few things that I think needed to be qualified. One of them was that you made the statement that our college graduates can now write a fitting English. I think that statement was a little bit too harsh and I would say incorrect. There are students in Liberia, because I taught at the university very briefly, and I taught at Stella Maris. There are students in Liberia today that write very well and they graduate from college. The proof of that is some will come to Georgetown. And participating in policy issues across government. I was in a sector that was cross-cutting, so I have an idea. So I would think that statement was a little bit too harsh. The second thing is, your caller spoke on the issue of the role of what will you advise if you were given the opportunity to talk to the president or to Senator Dillon. There and then, I found him to be dangling. I think your guest needs first to understand the role and responsibilities of each of these three branches of government. Right. They are equal coordinated branches. And sometimes people ascribe responsibility to institutions or to individuals that are totally not their responsibility. And so building roads and talking about medical equipment for Dillon to give ascribe responsibility to institutions or to individuals that are totally not their responsibility. And so building roads and talking about medical equipment for Dillon to give ascribe responsibility to institutions or to individuals that are totally not their responsibility. And so building roads and talking about medical equipment
Hold on, Mr. Hold on, Mr. Oblan, just give me a second.
Okay.
We went into some technical situation here, and Mr. Y is back on the line. So, I will encourage you to just repeat sort of the last 2 minutes of your statement, Mr. Nima. I think you were striking an important, but we're running in and out of situation with Mr. Wa, but he will join the conversation. So go ahead, Mr. Nima. Just give us the last 2 minutes of your statement. I think they were very, very important.
Okay, so Mr. Gray, Colonel Gray, so just a quick clarification that I wanted to strike, because you asked a very intriguing question. What will you do if you are advising the President of the Republic of Liberia or a senator like Senator Dillon? Your guest did a good job, like I said from the onset, but I just wanted to very much disagree with the roles and responsibilities that he was ascribing to Senator Dillon. I know he denied sending to the president. I actually anticipated that he would have said something about the presidency and what his advice would have been. Notwithstanding the fact, I think he needs to first take a deeper look at the Constitution of the Republic of Liberia. There are 3 branches of government, and the 3 equal and coordinating branches of government, first, second, and third branches. And those branches have their distinct roles to play. While it is true in the African setting, the executive branch dominates, but there are specific roles that a senator who sits in the legislative branch of government has. He has the role of making the law. So for the student guest who have said that he would think that Dillon, unless I'm misunderstanding him, that Dillon should be in the business of writing proposals for medical equipment and getting equipment and getting XYZ done, I would honestly disagree with him. That's not the role of Dillon. Dillon's role is specific. Those are wishful thinking that Liberians have. They put you in a category where just because of development and people want to get elected, to go and start breaking ground for rule and doing XYZ. That's not the role of a senator. The role of the senator is to make laws. The role of the senator is to do budgetary allocation for ministries. The ministries allocate when they approve it. The budget process is being answered to by the ministries to the senator. So there are a number of things that the senators are restricted to doing. There are certain things that they cannot do. So I just wanted to make a quick info. Like I said, I'll be open to sit on your show along with any other person, anyone who wishes to discuss the issues or public policy issue, where we came from in terms of the public sector reform. I can come on your show to talk about it. But you did a good job. I just wanted to point to those 2 things as my exception to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nima. Just before Mr. Y, just before you come in, Mr. Nima, I do have Mr. Iva Tokba will be on tomorrow. We will be talking on a number of policy issues because he has suggested that since government is sort of on a go slow moment because expenditure in traveling and all of these luxury line items that were being expended within our budget, national budget, they're on a temporary hold for now, and which means those kinds of funds that are not being expended can be repatriated into some other badly needed sectors of our economy. I felt that is a good discussion. That is a very good discussion. And then now you be thinking about policy, swap. What would you want to do in this time of our life as a nation, when the president and this large entourage that used to go abroad, those money are not being spent right now. What would you do? Are we going to repatriate that money into our agriculture sector or food production and so on and so? So we'll be talking something in our light, and I will send you the link. I'm not sure whether you, but it will be just about 6 o'clock Central, which is 7 Eastern. And so if you have some time, I'll send you the link so you can join us via video, and that way at least you'll be in studio virtually. So if that meets your approval, then we can take that further off the line. So Mr. Wa, you heard Mr. O'Brien Nima, of course. Like I said, he's a policy guru, he's a wonk. He's walk the walk and talk the talk. So he's extremely conversant with what he's saying. It's not, a man who has been burnt before is different from a man who sees fire and knows that fire can burn. So, so go ahead from there.
Okay, so I want to express my thanks and appreciation to the distinguished gentleman, Mr. Neiman. But I wanted to reiterate what I said in reference to advising Dillon. While we have gone into a little more detail about what the legislation should have been, I did in fact state clearly that Senator Dillon, I will advise him to put forth legislation in those respective categories that I mentioned. And legislation meaning those would be looked at by the full plenary and passed into laws. So those were distinct functions of the legislative branch of government. And by advising Senator Dillon to put forth legislation in terms of providing health care or free health care for our people, that would be written into law. So that is the function of the legislative branch of government. Okay, and I did in fact proceed to advise the president, if I was closer to him, on the immediate steps to take to implement policy in terms of bringing Liberians together to establish businesses in different parts of the country. So maybe you misunderstood my analogy on those two, but I wanted to clarify that for you, that I did mention legislation from Darius Dillon being put forth for ratification and either passage or confirmation of that of such legislation, or maybe adjustment or rewriting of such legislation, but henceforth it will be passed into law and become the law of the land. Now, I hope that addressed the legislation part of it and the distinction in responsibility of the various governments, specifically the legislative and executive branches of government. Now, to our students, I am not stating that all of our students cannot write or articulate. No. When I look at students like Martin Colley,
I think we got stalled at his end there. So yeah, go ahead. We got stalled at his end there a little bit, but Mr. Nima, of course, you heard he was talking about. It was distinctively talking about some brighter examples like Martin Colley. And I know there are so many Martin Colleys who are not out here, demonstrating some of the good part of our education, even though it's deplorable, but at least people are coming out alive out of that system because of the Martin Colleys of the world. So I've lost him. He's going to be coming back on. But like I said, Mr. Nima, I will have you on tomorrow, definitely, and I'll give you a split platform. That way, at least you'll be able to express yourself, expressing yourself better. But are there any other things that you probably would like to just touch on for the next, say, another additional minute and a half?
I think, like I said, you're still there, and in fact, you as the conductor of the interviews have done so well. Your questions are quite in place. They are intriguing. They create the opportunity for someone to throw light on our particular situation in Liberia. What I wanted to say in closing, if I were the one, as I were your guest, is to express to the President of the Republic of Liberia that he needs to pay attention to the rest of the world. As President of the Republic of Liberia, we are in a pandemic season, and everyone around the world who are leaders of their country are paying attention to this virus. It's critical. It is tied to the survivability of the state. It is tied to the governance process. It is tied to everything that you can think about with respect to government and governance. So I would think that he needs to pay a little bit more attention to it. I see that they are referencing the task force, they are referencing, and every conversation is coming from, the Minister of Health, my friend Dr. Masoka Fala, and my friend Eugene Nambi. But that is not enough. The President is the Chief Executive of the country. He's the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Liberia and the President of the Republic. The citizens of Liberia need to hear him on a regular and daily basis on this pandemic. It is a global threat. The countries that we as a third world country are dependent on are struggling to survive or to mitigate the current circumstances. That should clean the attention of our president. That yes, indeed, this is a global pandemic, and if it happens to hit Liberia at an unprecedented level, it will be a disaster for the nation, given the size of our population and the strength of our economy. Needs to mention the deplorable healthcare situation we have in the country. So these are things that I wanted to say, particularly on this note. That's the only advice I was asking now, and we'll prepare myself for conversation tomorrow.
Okay. I mean, of course, politics in general, nationally,